am I the asshole for no longer giving support to my wife's family after I became successful with my own company after they talked down on me? My early 30s wife, mid 20s, grew up in a fairly poor environment. Her grandpa had money, but her mom didn't, and her sister didn't. My wife had an incredibly strong work ethic. She's probably more defined as a workaholic. When I first met her, I was in trucking, making about $50K to $70K a year. Since then, I've developed a niche for a specialty marketing field and became very good at it. All of my friends encouraged me to go into business for myself with a marketing company. My wife was fully supportive of this, even after we discussed the financial difficulties we would have for the first year or so due to a limited budget. I made sure that she knew that some months I may not get a paycheck from the business. My salary is paid monthly. Her family, however, were not. They accused me of neglecting my family, being lazy, not wanting to work, etc. They would constantly be bringing up the fact that I didn't have a job because I was always home working remote. She would defend me, but they would ignore it and continue to call me lazy and a deadbeat for putting my daughter in daycare while I worked from home. I was still driving a truck part-time to have steady and reliable income, but it was only half of what I was making in a good week. In the last year, I have grown my income from my business beyond what I was making in trucking and have very little overhead. Since we cut costs back when I first started, we realized a lot of things we were paying for we could do without or found other alternatives, and we never really added those expenses back. So it's like we have significantly more money now. I still drive a semi occasionally for a friend who owns his truck, mainly to keep my CDL active and stay knowledgeable in the industry as a fallback. Her family has taken note and they're constantly asking to go out to eat with us, hang out with us, etc., and then get mad when I never pay for the meals, the outing, the vacation, etc. Aside from my part of the tab, obviously. Looking back, I understand why they never had money. They were living well beyond their means, but if it makes them happy, then it is what it is. I let my wife do whatever she wants with her money, which sometimes includes buying stuff for her family, which I support her doing with her money if that's how she wants to spend it. But I make sure that she knows that I don't want a dime of my money going to her family since they were very unsupportive of what made us our money and would go as far as talk down on me for doing what led to our money.
I, 28 female, found out my husband, 29 male, has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister. What do I do? Please help. My husband, I'll call him Josh, and I have been together for 6 years, married for 4. We don't have any kids. We have a really healthy and communicative relationship. We're both pretty easygoing, and I really love him. He started working at a large accounting firm about 3 years ago, and from what he tells me, he loves it there. He's made a lot of friends through his job, and he goes out with them for drinks and social events quite often. And I've been totally okay with that. I'm quite introverted, so I've never been interested in meeting his colleagues or work friends, nor have I asked to. I've got my own circle of friends, and I'm fine with us having separate friend groups. After what happened yesterday, it only just occurred to me that he has never actually asked me if I'd like to meet any of them, or even go to one of his work events. I guess that's important context. Anyways, I'll start with what happened a few months ago that I had brushed off until now. I was at a bar with some friends for a couple of Friday after work drinks, and a guy approached me. He was there with some friends too. He looked slightly familiar, but I hadn't met him before. He seemed friendly enough, and he asked me, quote, "My name, right?" I think I might have just given him a confused look because he followed up with, quote, "I'm Jake. I work with Josh." I realized that I recognized him from some photos on my husband's phone. I don't use social media except for a private Instagram, so I'm not sure if he posted the photos anywhere. But we've got a very trusting relationship, so I look in his photos sometimes. Don't hate me. This is where it gets a bit embarrassing. I'm a bit socially awkward, and so I struggled to end the conversation, but he kept just talking at me. I guess he was already a couple of beers deep, but while he was talking, he'd said something like, quote, "It's great that you guys are still so close. I haven't talked to my brother in ages." At the time, I was like, huh? But I just assumed he was drunk and not making sense, so I ignored it. He started to get a little flirty, so I turned to my friends and we left shortly after that. I didn't say anything to them about it, and it didn't seem like a big deal to me. I also decided to not tell my husband that I had met his coworker Jake, not to hide it, but because I figured the guy wouldn't even remember talking to me, and I didn't want to make it awkward for Josh at work by telling him his colleague tried to hit on me. I just thought, no harm, no foul. But yesterday morning, I was out walking our dog, Monty. He's a cross between a few breeds and has very unique markings. This matters, I promise. And I was on my way to my regular cafe, which is in town. I was waiting in line to order, and the guy in front of me was an older man. He got his coffee and turned around, but stopped and looked at my dog and goes, "Hello, Monty." Monty was super excited to see him, apparently, and so I guessed that this guy was another colleague of Josh's because Josh brings the dog to the office a couple of times a week. I thought it was sweet, to be honest, so I smiled at him and said hi. He introduced himself. I guessed correctly that he was a colleague, but then he said something like, quote, "Aren't you a good sister?" walking his dog for him.
No way.
I was so confused that I didn't even know how to react at first. So I stumbled on my words and just said, quote, "It's my dog." I regret it, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to correct him and say that I'm Josh's wife and not his sister. It was just too awkward, and I just wanted to leave because I think it was suddenly dawning on me what might have been going on. He asked me something about sharing a dog, but I was able to escape the conversation by being next in line to order my coffee, and he left. I seriously don't know what to do because what the fuck? Do I even ask my husband about this? Yes! Part of me is just assuming or hoping that it's a mistake, that he doesn't talk about me much at work and they assume we are related because we both have brown hair, question mark, question mark, question mark. But the thought that he has been telling his coworkers that I'm his sister and evidently they have seen what I look like, so they must have seen photos, makes my stomach churn. I don't even know how I would broach the subject with him. I need some help. What would you guys do in this situation? I have only told one friend what happened because it's so weird and embarrassing, and she has jumped straight to, quote, "time to plot his downfall," because she's my ride or die and I love her. But I don't want to immediately assume the worst or ruin my marriage over something that could be nothing. I'm sorry for the long and rambly post, but I would really appreciate all and any advice.
I think you should end the marriage based off the fact that you don't even feel like you could talk to him about this. Is there an update?
Am I the asshole for taking a little time to myself in the mornings? My wife, 30 female, Laura, and I, 35 male, have 2 children, ages 2 and 3.5, and we've been married for 5 years. Laura is a stay-at-home mom to our boys and takes the boys 3 days a week to take care of her grandmother, who has dementia. The other 4 days, a nurse comes in. I work in retail management. My typical schedule is 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. with a 1-hour lunch break if I choose to take it. I live about 45 minutes from my job, and I like to head out a bit early, get a coffee and a quick bite, and send some emails from a cafe before walking into work. This means I typically leave the house between 8:30 and 9 a.m. in the morning. After work, I'm often frustrated, so I stop by the 24-hour gym I'm a member at and run on the treadmill or lift weights for a bit. This puts me getting home at 12 or just after. On weekends, I often have things planned with family or friends that tend to use up a portion of my day. Laura is telling me I need to stick around to help her more in the mornings. She's insisting my routine isn't all that important, and I'm making her feel like a single mom. From my perspective, I enjoy my routine. I get some peace and quiet, and it's a nice way for me to prepare for me and end my day. Laura wants me to be at home until she either leaves with the boys to her grandmother's or until it's closer to noon. If I did that, I'd completely miss being able to go to the cafe and deal with emails while I mentally prepare myself for the day. She doesn't mind me going to the gym so much, as she's usually asleep by the time I get home. I've offered to ask my sister or mom to come over and help her in the mornings a day or 2 a week, but she rejected that idea. I feel like I've offered a compromise of sorts, but Laura is telling me that I haven't. Am I the asshole?
Yeah, very clearly. You should be single. Because
why do you have a wife and kids?
Is single male energy.
You are essentially a deadbeat dad. The only thing you're providing is some financial support. And I'm going to tell you what, if Laura wanted to, Laura could go out there and get herself a job and probably have an easier time parenting than she is right now.
Well, she's working harder regardless.
You're not doing her a favor. I hate when people act like them being the breadwinner and allowing their partner to stay at home is some favor. Is that a gift to be able to spend that time with your kids if you like them and you want to do that? Yes. But are you doing that stay-at-home parent a favor? No.